Hello everyone, today in this video we will start chapter number 4 of our book Vistas for class 12th. So dear students, the name of the chapter is The Enemy, right? So the enemy is based on the foundation of selflessness, sense of duty, compassion and generosity. So dear students, when we talk about the story Enemy, this highlights how a Japanese doctor saves the life of an American prisoner of war and rises above narrow national prejudices. He risks his honor, career, position and life by sheltering a war prisoner of the enemy camp and saving his life. The author has beautifully portrayed the conflict in the doctor's mind as a private individual and as a citizen with a sense of national loyalty. By the end of the chapter, we will come to know that this chapter, The Enemy, gives us the message that humanism transcends all man-made prejudices and barriers. Dr. Sadao uploads the ethics of medical profession in treating an enemy. So the story is a great lesson of peace, love, sympathy, fellow feeling and humanism. When I talk about the setting of the story, this story took place on a coastal town of Japan in the year 1941. In the year 1941, right, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. So this is a place where Japan attacked, right, and there was a war going between America and Japan, and the Japanese were hostile to Americans and they ready to kill Americans anywhere found in their soil. So dear kids, when we talk about the author of the story, so author of the story is Pearl S. Buck. So let's know about Pearl S. Buck. Pearl S. Buck, her complete name was Pearl Sidensticker Buck. She was born in 1892 and died in 1973. She was an American writer and the novelist. She had a Chinese name also, Sai Zhenzu, as she spent her childhood in China. Being the daughter of a missionary, she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1932 and the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1938. So dear students, let's talk about the chapter The Enemy. So here it is telling, before you read what we have to study, let's talk about that. Before you read column, you have to see. So please open the very first page of your book where the chapter is getting started. So The Enemy, written by Pearl S. Buck. It is the time of the World War. An American prisoner of war is washed ashore, dying state, and is found at the doorstep of a Japanese doctor. Should we save him as a doctor or hand him over to the army as a patriot? So as I told you that the story is set during the Second World War, and a Japanese doctor finds an American POW, that is prisoner of war, at his doorstep, and he is in a dilemma that being a doctor, should he save the wounded man, or being a Japanese, should he hand over the enemy to the army? So let's find out. Let's start reading of the chapter. So the first paragraph says, Dr. Sadao Hoki's house was built on a spot the Japanese coast where Dr. Sadao Hoki's house was built on a spot of the Japanese coast where as a little boy he had often played. The low square stone house was set upon the rocks well above a narrow beach that was outlined with the bent pines. As a boy, Sadao had climbed the pines, supporting himself on his bare feet, and he had seen the men do in the South Seas when they climbed for coconuts. His father had taken him often to the islands of those seas and never had failed to say, "The little brave boy," as his side, "those islands yonder, they are stepping stone to the future of Japan." So, dear students, this is the first paragraph which we have to study. So, here please underline the word yonder. Yonder means at some distance. Okay, when we point something, okay, with the short distance, that is called yonder. So, here in this opening paragraph of the story, the writer introduces the main character of the story, who is Dr. Sadao Hoki. Okay, so what was the complete name of the doctor? Dr. Sadao Hoki. Now, he is saying that Dr. Sadao's house was situated on the coast. Where it was situated? On the coast, right? On the coast of Japan, and he had been living there since his childhood. He was living there since his childhood, and the house had a low height and was made up of stone. So, this he is telling here the low square stone house means it was made up of stones, and it was at the low height, right? And after that he is telling that it was set upon the rocky beach which has a boundary line made by the pine trees. So, here you can see that the rocks well above a narrow beach that outlined with the bent pines means there was a boundary. Suppose his house is here, okay, and there was a boundary of the pine trees here, right? So, that is what we have to study. So, this is the description of the house of Dr. Sadao Hoki, right? So, this the author is describing here. Now, he is telling that the pine trees were bent. They were tilted towards one side. Bent means tilted. Okay, what is the meaning of bent? That means tilted. So, here you can note down the meaning of bent means tilted, right? So, now when Dr. Sadao was a child, as a boy, he has climbed the pines. So, when he was a child, when Dr. Sadao was a child, he would climb up the pine trees. On his visits to South Seas, he noticed that how people would climb on the coconut trees, right? And how they get the coconuts from the trees. So, when he saw them, when he noticed them, so he would accompany, he also learned to climb on the trees, right? Next is, his father had taken him often to the island of those seas. So, he would accompany always his father to the island of the South Seas, and his father he would say that the house were those trees were actually, those islands were the stepping stones towards the future of Japan. Okay, so those trees were the stepping stone of the Japan. So, this was the saying of whom? Of Dr. Sadao's house. Dr. Sadao's father. So, Dr. Sadao would question him childishly when he said that, why you are saying that these islands were the stepping stones of the on the future of Japan. So, Dr. Sadao would question him childishly, where would they reach from those islands? Okay, what is the purpose of those islands? Where would they reach to from those islands? So his father would reply that it was not known as it depended on the future, and the future had no limits, right? So it depended on the mankind, it depends on the mankind how they shape their future. So this is there discussed in the first paragraph. Sadao has taken this into his mind as he did everything his father said. His father, who never joked or played with him, but who spent infinite pains upon him, who was his only son. Sadao knew that his education was his father's chief concern. So here in this paragraph, we will study that this boy Sadao retained all the things that his father would tell him as a child, right? So he was also very much concerned, because the father was very much concerned for his son. So he retained all the things that his father would tell him as a child, right? And his father never played or joked with him, because here it is written that he never joked or played with him, but also spent infinite pains. But he took a lot of pain for securing his future. Right? They shared a very mature relation, and his father underwent a lot of hardships to bring him up. Right? Sadao knew that his education was his father's chief concern, and Sadao knew that the father was concerned only about the education of him. So for this reason, he had been sent at 22 to America to learn all that he could be learned for surgery and medicines. So that's why his father sent him to America. Why? Because his father was too much concerned about his education, and he wanted that his son should be a doctor. So he was sent to America at the age of 22. So this is very important thing here. At the age of 22, he was sent to America. Now why he was sent to America? Because so that he could learn surgery and medicine over there. He returned at the age of 30. When he returned from America, he returned at the age of 30. Okay. So when he returned at the age of 30, after 8 years, because he went there at the age of 22. So when he returned at the age of 30 after 8 years from America, before the death of Dr. Sadao's father, he became a famous doctor. He had to come back at the age of 30, and before his father died, he had seen Dr. Sadao become a famous, not only as a surgeon but also a scientist, Okay, so he became a very famous doctor and the surgeon. We are talking about Sadao here, that when he came back after 8 years from America, he was a very famous, not only the famous surgeon but also a scientist, right? Next, he had come back at the age of 30, right? This we have done because as he was perfecting a discovery which would render wounds entirely clean, he had not sent abroad with the troops also. Now here in this paragraph, you will find out that because there was a war going on and doctors were required there also in the war also, but he was not sent to with the troops of the army. Now what was the reason of that? So let us find out that. Now Sadao was only the doctor which was very famous surgeon, very perfect scientist he was also. So he was not sent to abroad, he was not sent abroad with the armed forces as a doctor. So there was one more reason also. He retained in Japan because the old journal, right? Here you can come to know. Also he knew that there was some slight danger at the old journal might need an operation for the condition, for he was now being treated medically, and for his possibility Dr. Sadao was being kept in Japan. So this was also the another reason, or the most important, you can say, the reason why he was not sent with the troop. So because he was taking care of the suffering or the old general who was suffering from an ailment which needed to be operated upon in the case of emergency. So that's why he was kept in Japan. So dear students, we have done 2 paragraphs of this chapter, the enemy. I hope you got it. We will read the next part of the story in the next video. Thank you very much. Till then, please just make notes that what are the important points we learnt in these 2 paragraphs. Thank you very much. This was on page number 24 and 25 of your textbook Vistas for class 12.